county by county. I'm cycling through as many places as possible and exploring their relevance to us today. The cracks in between his fingers cast a shining light through his eyelids. He missed the old bugger. Thomas Wolsey created the certainty of future that Henry had become accustomed to. He stopped cradling his face and looked at the parchment before him in desperation. Henry VIII and Thomas Wolsey had been fruitlessly petitioning the Pope to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon for many years now. With Wolsey out of the king's favour and into exile, Hampton Court was now in royal possession. The parchment before him contained the last word Henry would say to the Pope on his great matter. The decision to split from Rome would cause a shift in the Christian world and split it in two. Hampton Court was at the heart of this momentous change and would light the way. (1291), and the shading of the culture and desolation were beginning to have repercussions of enormous scale. Knights from the First Crusade were fleeing the Holy Lands, and their quest was being torn to shreds. As the Knights Hospitallers fled throughout the world, a faction of them settled their sights on England and the lands at Hampton. Founded by the Blessed Gerald, the Knights used the land as a place for storing goods and food. It was also used for providing medical personages. It stood between Byfleet and Sheen. When Byfleet was no longer viable, this arrangement fell into disuse. Giles Dormley became Lord Chancellor to Henry VII in 1494 and was given the lands. He had become a knight in 1478 and fought alongside Henry VII at Bosworth Field. He died in 1508. Henry, however, proceeded to have the lands built at Hampton.
It became an exceedingly popular royal destination as the order progressed and became Hampton Court. Henry VII was a great miser and hoarder of wealth and was not inclined to spend more than was absolutely necessary. A direct contrast to when his son unexpectedly took the throne.
In the 1500s, it was a new age where so much was spent on maintaining a standard of royal opulence. Sir Thomas Wolsey, the King's Chancellor and confidant, was given the small manor of Hampton Court in 1514. Expensive tapestries were required and gilded ceilings erected and forged. A procedural route led from these grand apartments to an imposing double-height chapel. During this decade, it became necessary for it to be particularly lavish. Particularly the guests' quarters at Base Court. These caused yet more cracks in the court, and a newer rift between people and the social elite. It was in 1520 that Hampton Court accommodated the famous Cloth of Gold celebrations which were held for the King of France. In 1528, when Wolsey failed to get Henry a divorce, the king took measures to snatch Hampton Court from him. He very soon started his own building projects to remodify the place to his specific requirements.
Rifts in everyone's relations were beginning to show. Hunting parks and new great halls were erected and splendid functions became the norm. 1540 was the decline of this, however, when the king finally died, leaving behind a nation that no longer knew what it stood for.
What was once a grand court now was used only as a prison for Charles I during the Civil War. Next time, in the final installment of this series, I'll be looking at the way in which the English Civil War snatched Hampton Court from the jaws of such opulence and turned it into a harbour for the social cracks that developed right down the centre of the formulating British Empire. Though hedonism never dies, only subsides. To that end, I shall examine how Henry VIII's legacy of gluttony reflects on the burgeoning tertiary leisure industry that predominates today. Okay, ready? Providing that's enough again.
To when his son Alex took the throne. Hallelujah. Hit it, boy.
Really very, really